first of all, hello, everybody. In contrast to what you're seeing as my name, I am not my father. It is me, Reuben Poupko. I don't know. I can't see everybody who's here. Maybe I know some of you. Maybe you know me. This is pretty wild what we're doing. I don't know if this has ever been done. There's been a lot of virtual tours that has been going on the last couple of months since the outbreak of that pandemic. But most of the time, from what I understand, a tour guide, I myself happen to be a tour guide, besides being a teacher of Torah here in Israel. Most of the time, like the person sitting at their computer in their living room and maybe showing pictures of Jerusalem. Here we are, Tisha B'Av afternoon here, Tisha B'Av morning there in Montreal. I'm here live in the old city of Jerusalem. And over the next 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to be trying to do something that may sound challenging, but hopefully it's going to be really incredible and inspiring. And that is a mixture of me showing you some things. Now, I know probably most of you, if not all of you, have been to Israel before, and maybe have seen some of the places I'm going to show you, but hopefully I'll be able to add a certain element of interest to it. And as well, we're going to learn some Torah as well. We're going to be thinking about the day. So it'll be kind of a mixture of learning a little bit more about the incredible city of Jerusalem, a city like no other, focusing on the themes of Tisha B'Av, and also learning a little bit of Torah. If you all want to mute yourselves, that's fantastic. But if you want to ask a question, please, please, please do. So I won't force mute anybody. You can just unmute and ask a question. That'd be great to make it a little bit more interactive and make me feel that there's somebody listening, which is hard to do over Zoom. And just if you can try and remember to mute yourself afterwards, that would be great. Before we get started, I'll say, first of all, thanking my father and to Stephanie for allowing me to do this. This is really getting me out of the house on Tisha B'Av. It is very hot here. It was about high of 40 degrees today here in Jerusalem. So I've been fasting, obviously, but there's only a couple hours to go, so I'm ready to go. One other thing that I want to say, and then we'll get started, and that is about what this next 45 minutes to an hour is going to be. I think probably for a lot of you, it's just going to be cool to see somebody walking around Jerusalem on Tisha B'Av afternoon, especially since the skies have been closed since the outbreak of the pandemic. And maybe some of you had plans to come to Israel over the summer, to be here in Yerushalayim, to be at the Kotel. So in spite that you're not able to do that, maybe us being here together and me walking through the streets will, not to get a little too kitschy, but maybe that will give you a nice sense on Tisha B'Av afternoon of having a connection to Yerushalayim, which of course you already are for those observing a day. Okay, so if there's not any questions, we're going to get started. We're going to focus on three things today. Where are we? So first of all, you can look around. I'm holding a gimbal, by the way, which is trying to keep this picture focused. So we're here in the Jewish quarter of the old city at a very special place. I'm going to turn around my camera here for a second. And we're looking at this. Probably some of you have seen this before if you've been to Jerusalem. If not, then I'm very happy to show you this. I'm going to come through the gate over here. This is called the Broad Wall. And if you can see it, we're looking at a very, very, very ancient wall. What this wall is, why is it important, all will be explained. I want to share for a second a document that I prepared for this afternoon. It's going to come up on your screen in 1 second. There you go. Okay, I hope everyone can see it. Where are we on the screen? This is a map of Jerusalem, of ancient Jerusalem, as if there was nothing, no buildings there or anything, okay? If you can see on the document that I shared, you'll see where it says the temple in Mount Moriah, okay? So that is the Temple Mount, where now stands the Golden Dome, where the Beit HaMikdash, where the temple used to stand. Where the black is, you see there's a black line going under that. That is where the walls, the old city walls of today go. We're doing this over Zoom, so I don't want to get too complicated. But basically where it says the city of David, that is the continuation of a mountain ridge that you see comes from the Temple Mount, goes through the walls of the old city today down to the Silwan Valley, where the pool is, where the springs are. That was where the kings of Israel were anointed. Just bear with me 1 more second, then I'll come back to you can see me on the screen. That, I hope you can all see that there's a mountain ridge, which has a valley on the west called the Ciprian Valley, and on the valley on the east called the Kidron Valley. The Tyropean Valley is also in Hebrew is called the Gai. The Jewish quarter of today, where I'm standing right now, is to the west of that valley. So does everyone get what I'm saying? There's Mount Moriah, there's the city of David, there's a valley, and then there's a hill to the west of that. That's called the Western Hill. I'm going to get off this document. Okay. First of all, if there's any questions, I know we're trying to do. Here you can see sounds of Jewish kids here in the Jewish quarter. Okay. If you saw in that document, ancient Jerusalem, in other words, where the city started 4,000 years ago, was exclusively on what's called the Eastern Hill. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Starting from Mount Moriah, where the Beit HaMikdash was, Hara Moriah, Rabbi, going down to Ir David, going down to the Shiloach or the Gihon, the spring. The Western Hill, that was on the other side of the Gai or the Tyropean Valley, that's where the Jewish quarter is today. Okay? You're saying, wait a second. If you've ever been to Jerusalem before, where is that valley? Where's the valley between Har HaBayit, Mount Moriah, where the Kotel is on the western side of that, to the Jewish quarter? If you know the answer to this question, feel free to unmute yourself. Where is that valley? The valley that separates between on the western side of Har HaBayit to the Jewish quarter. Where is that valley today? Why don't we see it today? Or do we see it? Any ideas? Don't be shy. Where is that valley today? Where is that valley? Anybody? Nobody?
Was it filled in? Was it filled in with all the...
A little bit of it was filled. You're right. A little bit of it was filled in. But the valley's actually, a lot of it is still today. That is the western wall. Hi, Mark Sidboy, who was my computer teacher in 7th grade. Very nice to see you. Very good memories. I'm turning 40 in 2 days, if that doesn't scare you. The valley that you can see on that map, that is the Western Wall Plaza. That's the Kotel Plaza. You know, where you come down to the Western Wall, you come down to the Kotel, and there's a huge open area where people are davening, where people are praying. That is the valley. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So you have the temple. All this why this is important will become clear in a second. You have Har HaBayit on a ridge coming down into the valley, down to the Gihon. The western ridge, you know, when you're coming, you've prayed at the Kotel, and you then walk back up to the Jewish quarter, you have to go up those stairs. You know what I'm talking about? All those stairs you have to walk up. That is walking up to the western ridge, to the western hill. I'll just go back to the document for 1 second. There it is. Okay, if you see, so I'm talking about the hill just to the west of where it says the Tyropean Valley, which again in Hebrew is the Gai. That's where I am right now. Okay, now I'm getting back. I hope you can still following me. I haven't lost anybody here. Coming back to this wall. This is a wall that, because of carbon dating, you guys are all very smart. I'm sure you know what carbon dating is. When archaeologists in 1969, after the Six-Day War, okay, of course, between 48 and 67, the Jewish quarter was in the hands of the Jordanians. Jews were not allowed coming here. The Six-Day War, 52 years ago, the Jewish quarter was liberated and became part of the capital city of Yerushalayim, the modern state of Israel. And there was incredible archaeological digs and excavations that happened here. And one of the most important finds that they found was this huge wall that we're looking at, that I'm looking at right now. Here, it's behind me. I'm going to turn over here. Yeah, I'll turn down the phone like that. There you go. Okay, now everyone can see the wall behind me. The reason why, when they built the buildings of the Jewish quarter, which are all around me in the late 70s and 80s, where people live right now, the reason why they didn't cover this up or at least build the building on top of it, like they did to other archaeological excavations of the Old City, is because of the importance of this find. Why is this wall so important? Again, we're on the western hill, outside of the eastern hill of ancient Jerusalem. When archaeologists dug up this wall, they did carbon dating, and they dated it to, bear with me, the last decade of the 8th century BCE, before the Common Era, 2,700 years ago. As John Stewart used to say, that's mind-blowing, right? I mean, that's unbelievable. I'm looking at something with my very own eyes. You are looking at something through your computers, through my iPhone XR, at a wall which is 2,700 years old. which is incredible. Why is that a big deal? Why is this important to think about on Tisha B'Av when we're thinking about Jerusalem? Because
you're talking about the area that was walled by Chizkiyahu?
Very nice. Mark is a very smart person and a very knowledgeable Jew, and that's exactly right. As Mark correctly states, the king of Jerusalem at that time was Chizkiyahu HaMelech, one of the most righteous kings in our history, called by the rabbis of the Talmud actually as a potential Messiah, as a potential Mashiach, because of his great righteousness and how he saved Jerusalem. Okay. Up until this discovery behind me, there was a tremendous debate amongst historians and archaeologists. What was First Temple Jerusalem like? I'm sure most of you know this, but just to jog your memory here, King David comes to Jerusalem in the year 1000 BCE, 3,000 years ago. His son Shlomo HaMelech builds the first Beis HaMikdash in the year 950 BCE and is destroyed by the Babylonians in 586. Then we come back approximately 50 to 70 years later, we build the second temple, and then it's destroyed by the Romans in the year 70. Most historians, up until this archaeological find, believe the following: that Jerusalem of the First Temple period. What does that mean, Jerusalem of the First Temple period? That means Yerushalayim of David HaMelech, of Shlomo HaMelech. It means Yerushalayim of Yeshayahu HaNavi, of Isaiah the prophet, of Jeremiah the prophet. They believed, let's put it even more frankly, the Jerusalem of the Torah, of Tanakh, was a small city, was a city that was limited to the geographical area. Here, I'm going to go back to that little slide over there, of the Eastern Ridge. The hill that starts with Mount Moriah going down to the city of David. It was only on that very small area. Why did historians say that? Historians say things for a lot of different reasons. But part of it is, and there's nothing wrong with this, this is a critical approach to the Torah, is historians open up the Bible, they open up the Torah, and legitimately, justifiably, look at it with a critical eye, right? And they say, is what we're reading here really accurate? Is there exaggerations going on over here? And when you read stories of Yeshayahu HaNavi, Yirmiyahu HaNavi, and Chizkiyahu, Hezekiah the king, talking about Jerusalem, so what are you thinking to yourself? You're thinking, oh, this is what are historians saying? It wasn't really that big of a city. It was a small city. Yet, if a wall is found here, and this is why this archaeological find was so important, because when archaeologists found this in 1969, the archaeological team led by the great Nachman Avigad found this wall. If there's a wall here, deep into the Jewish quarter, or to use technical terms, deep on the western hill of Yerushalayim, then what does that mean? If there's a wall here, what does that mean? What was where I'm standing right now? People, Jews, houses, right? Why do you, here, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm just going to flip around the screen here for a second so you can see a little better. There's a wall here. It means that where I'm standing, it means that there's people living here. You only build a wall where you want to defend people. Why were they building a wall? I don't want to get too much in the history because I've already stood in this spot for a little bit too long. But basically, there was a major attack coming from the north of the Assyrian Empire in the year 732 BCE, and then 722 BCE. And then finally, Jerusalem was attacked in the year 705 BCE. And a wall was built by Chizkiyahu HaMelech to protect the residents of the city. One last thing about what we're seeing, and then I'm going to start walking so as to not to, God forbid, bore anybody. If you can see, on the other side of the wall, what do you see there? You can see a little structure. I hope you guys can see that, just on the other side of the wall. That is a house, okay? That is a little house. A Jew lived there 2,800 years ago, okay? I don't know what his name was. His name was Yankele. His name was Moishele. He ate gefilte fish. He ate cholent. I don't know what he ate. Actually, yeah, you may be laughing at me, but believe it or not, archaeologists actually found in Ir David, in the older part of Jerusalem, in ancient Jerusalem, herring remnants, like bones of salted fish. We've been eating herring for a very, very, very long time. Why would they be eating salted fish? Because the sea, the Mediterranean, is about a day and a half, 2 days journey away, right, in those times. So you couldn't bring fresh fish, so fish would be caught and then would be salted and then would be eaten. There's a house there. Why is that so cool that there's a house here? because if you can see closely, the wall actually, now actually I'm going to start walking, so we're conserving our time. Is this okay if I'm going to walk and talk? I hope it doesn't make anybody nauseous. Hope it's okay. I'm just walking here through coming up to the thing, and I'm going to explain what this house is. The build up to the attack against of the Assyrians, of Chizkiyahu's controlled Yerushalayim, again, in the last decades of the 8th century BCE, is spoken about. It's actually the most referenced event in the Torah, in the sense that it's mentioned separately in 3 different books. It's mentioned in the book of Kings, Melachim. It's mentioned in the Sefer Yeshayahu, and it's also mentioned in Divrei Hayamim. The preparation by Chizkiyahu HaMelech of the city for the impending attack of the Assyrians. There is a pasuk, there's a verse in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah was the prophet when Chizkiyahu was king. And there's a verse there where he's talking about the preparation that Chizkiyahu did for the impending attack. And there's a criticism there. He says, "Benitatztem et habatim." You broke down the houses, levatzeret hachoma, to build the wall. Yeshayahu says that. Why is he saying it as a criticism? Basically, what was Chizkiyahu Melech doing? Eminent domain, right? He's like saying, I'm the king. Probably some of you know where I'm walking right now, past the Burgers Bar over here, the Holy Bagel to my right, walking towards the Kotel. Why was Isaiah critical of Chizkiyahu? What was Chizkiyahu doing? Chizkiyahu was saying, I need to build a wall. I don't care what I need to go through. There's houses here. This is the best place to put the wall. This is where I'm going to put it. Isaiah, the prophet, and this is the incredible, I would say, one of the great chidushim, one of the great ideas or method or ethical insights that the Nevi'im, that the prophets of the Torah give us, is that no matter what is happening geopolitically, no matter what is happening as far as defending a city, as far as economically speaking, never for a second can we forget the weak and the marginalized. Not for 1 second. No matter what's going on, never forget the orphan, never forget the widow, never forget those who are in need. So Chizkiyahu HaMelech builds a wall where he sees fit, the wall that we just saw, which proves, again, I'm realizing now I neglected to finish the point. The reason why that wall is so important because it proves to us that the city of Jerusalem was a much larger city than historians originally thought. Historians originally thought, before they found that wall, that ancient Jerusalem of the first temple period of the Torah, of the kings of Israel, was limited to the eastern ridge. When they found that wall, it shows, no, the population must have, obviously, it extended to the western ridge as well. It means the Jewish quarter of today has had Jews living in there, with obviously breaks in between, for almost 3 millennia. I mean, that's just unbelievable and mind-blowing. But when Isaiah the prophet sees that Hezekiah was breaking down a house to build a wall, Yeshayahu said, absolutely not. That's not okay, that's not kosher. Because no matter what's happening, I don't care what you're doing here, there's an impending attack from the there's this little guy living on the outskirts of the city, the outside of the western ridge. You can't do that. So what that means is, and the reason why that what we just saw is so incredible, is because, first of all, we're seeing with our own eyes the history of the Torah coming alive. We see a wall that's referenced in the book of Kings, in the book of Isaiah, in the book of Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles, found 3 millennia later, and also the moral criticism of what happened there during that. One of the reasons why I wanted to show that, here we're coming down. We're coming down to the Kotel. There it is. And the Dome of the Rock, you see it very beautifully, coming down to the Kotel. We're not going to go into the Kotel right now, though. We're going to go to the right over here. Coming back. I know you'd much rather look at the Kotel. You know what? Maybe I'll just keep the screen there for a second. You don't have to see my pretty face for a few seconds. On Tisha B'Av, when we're thinking about Yerushalayim and the temple, it's so important, and our prayers try and do this. It's so important to not get totally focused and singularly focused just on the building, because it wasn't just about the building. As we know, the reason this is what the Nevi'im tell us. The reason why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed was because of our actions, because of our moral failings. I'm going to bring something up here on that document over there. I'm going to share it again as I'm walking down. This is the very famous, you can see it here on your screen. This is a very famous, I promise we're going to do some Torah as well, a very famous Tosefta, talking about why the Beis Hamikdash, the temple, was destroyed. So here, the paragraph, this is the one that we're familiar with. The first temple, why was it destroyed? Because of three things that were in it. Idolatry, incest, and bloodshed, right? We all know that one. But the second temple, where they were engaged in Torah, mitzvahs, acts of kindness, why was it destroyed? Because they had senseless hatred, right? We all know this. We've heard this a million times. The second Beis Hamikdash, the second temple, was destroyed because of sinat chinam, right? Because of, sorry, I'm going to turn this around there. Do you see me, by the way, when I'm assuming not. Do you see me when I share the content? I don't think so. That the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of sinat chinam, because of baseless hatred. If you know anything about the history of late Second Temple Judaism, you know that in fact the Jewish people were torn between different groups and different sects, the Prushim and the Stukim and the Essenes and so on and so forth. There was tremendous sinat chinam, and it's a very important message for us today. However, there's a different version of that rabbinic idea as to why the Second Temple was destroyed. Share that one more time, and that is the first paragraph over here. Why were they exiled? You see on the first paragraph over there, because they loved money. You see that it has asterisks on either side, and hated each other. That's a version of this rabbinic idea that people are less familiar with. In other words, sinat chinam, baseless hatred, infighting between the Jews. You know, that's something that's unfortunately with us, and it's easy to talk about. The love of money is interesting, and something we don't talk about enough here. I'm just going to flip around my screen here for a second. You can see where we are. We're coming down to the wall, coming down to the hotel. You know what? I'm just going to shut up for 1 second. I've spoken already enough. Is any questions about anything I said? I hope I'm not speaking too quickly. I probably am. I hope this is interesting. Again, this is not the easiest thing to do. Any questions? Any thoughts on what we've spoken about so far? Something not clear? Anything? Anybody? All good? Okay.
What about Kamsa
Yes,
and Bar
please.
Kamsa?
What's that?
What about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa?
Right. Yeah. So absolutely, Kamsa and Bar Kamsa is the story, which it's considered the paradigmatic story of sinat chinam, a baseless hatred between Jews at the end of the Second Temple period. The love. So you're absolutely right. That's part of that whole rabbinic tradition. The reason why that version that adds love of money is interesting is because the Jewish quarter of today, again, that we call the Western Hill, where I was standing right now. Now I walked down the stairs into that valley. The Western Hill at the end of the Second Temple period was the residence of Kohanim, of priests. And there was a lot of criticism about the Kohanim then, that there was corruption going on, which was absolutely true. The rabbis were also very critical of the Kohanim, of the priests at that time, that there was alliances being formed with the Romans that was betraying as to what the Beis Hamikdash was supposed to be about. So it would seem that the Tosefta, when it mentions the love of money beyond just sinat chinam, is referencing the corruption of the Kohanim. Israelis this year have drawn attention, not to get political, but Israelis have drawn attention to that Tosefta, that yes, sinat chinam is one thing, but corruption is also something. Corruption of the leadership. There was a lot of protests going on today, not only today, in the last few weeks. So. Guys, I just want to put on a mask here. Put on a mask. Okay, coming down here with my mask. You see in Israel very strict about masks, as you are also in Côte St. Luc. Apparently, Côte St. Luc is one of the most strict places about masks. I'll take off my mask in a second, just when I get down here. So corruption is a very interesting thing. It's something that we haven't needed to speak about for 2,000 years of exile, 2,000 years of diaspora, because we don't have a leadership. Yeah, you can have rabbis, you can have communal leadership, but corruption on a full level, on a level of leadership, is something that we haven't had. So, but thinking about the leadership that was, and now that the state of Israel, we have obviously a Jewish leadership. So questions of corruption and money and honesty are very important questions. If you read carefully last night the book of Eicha, and you followed in the English translation or in the Hebrew translation, if you have good Hebrew, Jeremiah the prophet draws attention to, more than anything else, corruption. What does that mean, corruption? It means people who have been given power, who have been the faith of the people have been placed in them to be spiritual examples for them, moral examples, and they take that power and they use it for personal gain. I mean, it's a perversion of especially if someone is in a Torah role as a Kohen or as a rabbi or as a political leader, to take that power and to use it for personal gain is obviously a tremendous perversion and corruption, to the extent that Jeremiah the prophet says, Yirmiyahu Navi says, that's the reason for the Korban. Okay, here we are. Where are we? Here we are at I don't know if some of you know this. This is the other Kotel Plaza over here. This is a section that was set up for, most people call it the Reform section, the Conservative section. It's basically this alternative section that was set up a number of years ago for people who want to have prayer services, davening, bar and bat mitzvahs, where men and women can stand together. The reason I came down here was not to make any kind of political statement. Maybe some of you like that idea. Maybe some of you don't like that idea. I have no idea. But because it allows us to get very, very close up to the Kotel. I'm going to go around here. So here you go. Okay, here we are. We have the Kotel in the background. So I'm not in the Kotel Plaza proper. I'm just to the south of it. Okay, the Kotel Plaza proper is up there. But in the back of me, the stone you were looking at, and well, is in fact the Kotel. Something. We'll have one or two more time over here. What is the time? I have no idea. What is the time? Hello? Sorry. What time is it? I can't check.
It's 11:30.
11:30.
Okay, great. Perfect. So we'll be together for, let's say, another 20, 25 minutes. So let's see what else we can do. Okay, so here we are at, again, this is kind of a new section of the Kotel. As you can see, it doesn't extend all the way up until the wall. There is a section over there. You can see just to my right over there that does go down to the wall. It's closed right now. The Antiquities Authority in Israel actually just completed a 1.5 year long restoration of the stones of this section of the Kotel. You see, there's a scaffold. They've actually finished it. They just haven't taken down the scaffold yet. I'm sure they're going to do it next couple of weeks. They literally just finished this. Why did this happen? Why did they do that? And if you remember, a couple of years ago on Tisha B'Av, a woman, a Haredi woman, an ultra-Orthodox woman, was actually praying was davening in the section just to my right over there on Tisha B'Av afternoon, just about this time. And all of a sudden, a huge wall, a huge stone from the Kotel fell down. And miraculously, missed her just by a couple of inches. She would, without a doubt, would have been killed if it was a massive stone, Herodian stone from 2 millennia ago, would have fallen on her. And because of that, they realized, the Antiquities Authority, we need to do something to strengthen the stones. There's a better word I'm looking for. Not strengthen, but support. Make sure that the stones are well supported. And that's what they're doing with the scaffolding. And like I said, they just finished this literally a couple of weeks ago. They finished doing that. So we're at this section called Ezrat Yisrael. This was a section that was, I'm going to show you now an incredible picture. I'm going to share that document again, of what this looked like before archaeologists started digging here at the end, after the 6-day war. When I I don't know when I'm zooming in. I don't know if it's zooming in as well. Okay, let's just focus on what this is a picture of the area that we're in right now from the late 19th century, okay? Say there? In other words, 70 years approximately before the Six-Day War. You can see to the left side of the picture that the hotel that you're all familiar with, hopefully very soon, is in the middle. And then you see to the right of that, you can see there's like a funny little house being held up on stilts. If you can see that, that is where I am right now. As you can see, the entire area was filled in with all sorts of rubble and broken down walls and homes and houses and structures that have existed over the last 2 millennia. If you look at that funny house to the right, the house on those stilts, then you go to the bottom, to the right of it, down a little bit, you can see some grassy things sticking out of the wall. I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to stop sharing this. Can you see? I don't know if you could see actually. Oh, maybe you can't see. On the scaffold right, there, between the top and second level of the scaffold, there's some green coming out of the wall. I don't know if you can see that. That was what you just saw on that picture. In other words, ground level, before archaeologists started digging here 50 years ago, that's where it went up to. So the very top of the scaffold, and I want to see how far they've dug down. Now, I don't know if on Zoom, if on the picture, you can get a sense all the way down what you're looking at right now, and it's a truly incredible sight. This is the street of Jerusalem at the end of the second Beit HaMikdash in the late Second Temple period. Let's say the year 0, right? Or the year 20. The Beit HaMikdash was destroyed in the year 70. Then that was a road. It was built towards the end of the Second Temple period. That was a street that Jews walked on. Let me just flip back here to the screen so you can see me. 1 second. There I am. So first of all, just to give everyone, I hope when you saw that picture and you saw what I just showed you, I don't know how clear it was through Zoom, that's something unbelievable, right? I mean, that's something incredible as how the distance, I mean, and let me try and figure this out in meters. I mean, you're talking a distance of at least 50 meters, at least 50 to 70 meters of a depth that archaeologists dug down. You're talking about incredible depths, and it's not just taking a bulldozer, right? Slow. This is work that's taking decades until they finally reached bottom, where bottom in this case is the street of Jerusalem, of Yerushalayim, before the temple was destroyed and before Jerusalem was ransacked. I'm just going to flip the camera here again over, just so you can get a sense of the street again. Now, I don't know if this excites you or not. It's a personal thing. This is very exciting to me. This is very moving. We are able to see with our very own eyes, or through Zoom, through my iPhone, a site that, in other words, a site that was hidden from our eyes for millennia, for 2 millennia, and that was a street that was walked on by alive, happy, joyous, hopefully righteous, moral Jews when the Beit HaMikdash was standing here in Yerushalayim. As you can continue to see, if anybody has any questions about what I'm saying, please feel free to jump in. The other incredible thing that you see here, you know what? Before I talk about the rocks that you can see in front of you, which are obviously very important, just a quick, I'm going to flip the screen back here for a second. Hello, everyone. It's me again. I'm just going to turn around the screen. See, it's the coattails in the back of me. Sorry. So, okay. Hello, everyone. I want to make one quick historical point that some of you may know, some of you don't know. When maybe some of you coming to Yerushalayim, okay, but let me put it this way. When you go to Rome, in Rome, many of the very ancient structures, even from a couple of thousand years ago, are still standing, correct? And are still there. They're on the main thoroughfares of Rome. And that's true for a lot of ancient cities in the Roman Empire. When you come to Jerusalem, I don't know if you've ever asked yourself this question. Why, in order to see the ancient sites, especially in Jerusalem, do you need to go into museums or archaeological excavations? Why do you have to go so down? Now, of course, most of you know the answer that a lot of times given, because Jerusalem was conquered so many times. Okay, but Rome was also conquered a number of times. Jerusalem was conquered maybe more times than any other city, but still, why is Second Temple Jerusalem? Why is Yerushalayim of the second Beis Hamikdash so hard to access, or was so hard to access? In other words, to physically be there until archaeologists started digging there after the 6-Day War. The answer is simple. It wasn't from the Romans in the year 70. The Romans in the year 70 destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. They did not destroy Jerusalem. They did not destroy Yerushalayim. The person who destroyed Yerushalayim, who destroyed Jerusalem, only happened 60 years later by the Emperor Adrian. And the aftermath of the Bar Kokhba rebellion, right? I'm sure you've heard of the rebellion by Rabbi Kiva and Bar Kokhba, which was this incredible uprising 60 years after the temple was destroyed to try and reclaim Jerusalem, an independent Jerusalem, an independent Judea. When the rebellion was finally squashed after 2 years, Adrian then, Nechresha Ha'ir, he plowed the city. This is in the year 135 of the Common Era, 65 years after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Adrian actually minted a coin that said on it, Judea Captiva. Judea has become captive. And on the coin was a picture of an ox pulling a plow. Those of you who are familiar with the Gemaras about Tisha B'Av know that one of the things the Gemara says that we mourn on Tisha B'Av is the plowing of the city that was not done by the Romans in the year 70. It was done 65 years later by Adrian. He plowed the city. In other words, he erased any historical trace of Jewish Jerusalem was no longer accessible. If you wanted to find Jewish Jerusalem based on English, you would have to dig down. The grid of Yerushalayim today, when you walk around the old city of Jerusalem, the Cardo, Rehovot David, you go down the Arab Shuk and all that, it is a Roman grid. It is a Roman city with a Cardo and a Decomanos. Why was it a Roman city? Second Temple Jerusalem had Roman elements, but the streets were not it wasn't a Roman city, it was a Jewish city. That's all because of Adrian. Adrian was the one who plowed the city. And Adrian is a very important historical figure. Adrian did 2 more things that are with us to this very day. Not to get too political, but Adrian renamed the city from Jerusalem. Anyone know to what he renamed it to? I'm sure someone knows the answer. What did he rename? That's right, Elia Capitolina. Elia was his middle name. Capitolina means to the capital gods of Rome. In other words, this was an incredible, intensive, intentional effort on the part of Adrian to de-Judaize Jerusalem. He plows it. It's all gone. It's all underground, which is why when we're trying to see the street, ancient street of Jerusalem, let's flip back here a second so you can see it, the street there on the bottom, to see it, we have to dig down. It was hidden from us for 2,000 years. So he changes it. He builds on the Temple Mount. He builds a temple to the god of Jupiter. He builds a temple a little bit further down to Aphrodite. He literally changes it into a Roman pagan city. So on Tisha B'Av, when you're thinking about the destruction of the temple, according to the Gemara, rightfully so, when you feel it, when you hear, you understand the history, we're also mourning what happened 65 years later, which was not any more dramatic as far as furthering a dream of a return to Jerusalem. And Adrian did one other thing, which is really with us until this day. He changed the name of the province. The province was no longer known as Judea. We're Jews today because we're from Judean Jews from Judea. That's where the word Jew, that's why nations of the world started calling us Jews and not Israelites. It's because we're from Yehuda. Yehuda was the official Roman name for our province. He changed it from Judea to Syria, Palestina. Palestine. Why Syria and Palestina? Syria, the geographical area to the north, and Philistina, named after the ancient Philistines, residing on the coast of Israel. In other words, he was intentionally looking for a way to remove Jewish memory from the city of Jerusalem. I don't want to sound here too right-wing. I'm a centrist, even maybe sometimes I lean a little bit to the left of Israeli politics. But it's important. So this has nothing to do with contemporary politics of Israeli-Palestinian conflict or claims of a Palestinian state. But it's important to understand the word, where it comes from. Palestine, why did this area start being called that, was from Adrian, with the intention of changing the very spiritual, historical, and ethnic nature of the area that we're in right now. So that's just a little. I hope that was interesting, and I hope that was new to some of you. Just a little bit about Adrian and that period that happened in 135 and why it's so important as far as the later history of Jerusalem. Okay. I want to turn our attention to now maybe the two last things we're going to look at, and then I think we'll say shalom. Even though on Tisha B'Av, you're not supposed to say shalom. Any questions about anything that I said before I show you two quick? I'm not going to move to anywhere else. I'm going to stay right here till the end of our little shindig together. Any questions before I go on? Any questions about anything that I said up until this point? Don't be shy. No? Okay, great. Hope it's clear. Hope it's interesting. So here again, I flipped around the camera. This is the street just below me of Yerushalayim in around the year 20. And here, an incredible sight. When we were all sitting listening to Eicha last night, we're all trying to imagine what destroyed Jerusalem looked like. Here it is. There it is on your screens right in front of you. What are you looking at? You were looking at a mound, a heap of rubble, of stones. Where did these stones come from? These were stones that were knocked down by the Romans in the year 70 when they destroyed the temple. These were stones. In other words, you can see the Herodian stone on the western wall, right? The Herodian stone are the stones that have the outline, the carved outline, if you know what I'm talking about. So here you see that the wall is mostly intact, but on the Temple Mount itself and on certain areas of the Kotel, stones were knocked down, structures were knocked down, and the Romans, using massive sledgehammers, described by Josephus, the great historian, with sledgehammers knocked down stone structures that were part of the Beit HaMikdash, part of what's called the Stav HaMalchuti, and that's what we're looking at right here before us. It's a pretty incredible sight. You can imagine the excitement of archaeologists when they're here 40 years ago, digging down, or maybe 30 years ago even, digging down and finding this rubble and finding the stones in a newly Jewish liberated Jerusalem. It's a pretty remarkable thing. Okay, I'm going to show you guys one more thing. I hope you're going to find it interesting, and I think it's especially meaningful for Tisha B'Av. And we'll end with that. Okay, so just bear with me here. I'm going to, the screen's already flipped around. 1 second. There's like a little joystick. I don't know if you guys know what a gimbal is. It's like it's like a stabilizer. Okay. You're going to have to believe me, okay? Because, Iris just joined. Hi, Iris. I think that's the Iris that I know. In one of the stones in front of me, unfortunately, you can't see it. When archaeologists started digging down here after the 6-Day War, they discovered an inscription on the wall, okay? This is really incredible. I'm going to show you now. I'm going to share that. No, I don't want to do that. Wait, 1 second. I'm going to show you a close-up of that inscription, okay? So just bear with me here for a second. Here it is, okay? I hope you can all see that what you're looking at is a picture of one of the stones of the Kotel. I'm just going to stop sharing this for a second. The stone is right in front of me. It's actually in the scaffold. It's covered by the scaffold right now. It's in between the second to bottom to third to bottom level of the scaffold. That's where the stone is that I'm now going to go back and show you the picture of it. Again, archaeologists in the mid-70s are digging here. revealing more and more stones of the Western Wall. And lo and behold, they find on one of the stones of the Kotel Hebrew words. From what period? When were these? I'm going to tell you in a second what these words, well, I know it's hard to read it from where you are right now, what the words say. But you can imagine the excitement, right? I mean, you're rediscovering ancient Jewish Jerusalem, and here you are digging down, revealing stones of the Kotel, and you find graffiti from a Jerusalem Jew from many centuries ago. Obviously, very exciting. When? So there's a debate amongst the archaeologists when exactly this was written. There's no consensus, but let's go with one opinion. Okay, one of the opinions says, I'm going to flip back here. I'm going to stop sharing it for a second. Flip the camera back. I'm going to start walking. The consensus is that it was written in the 2nd century during, not the consensus. One opinion is that it was scribbled on the Kotel during the Bar Kokhba revolt, right? Again, 62 years after Jerusalem falls, there is a rebellion that happens. And Jerusalem is actually recaptured. For how long, historians aren't sure, maybe a number of months, maybe up to a year. It's unclear. I'm just going to put on my mask over here for a second. Hope you can still hear me. One second. Oh. Where was I? When Jerusalem was recaptured during the Bar Kokhba revolt, as a celebration of that, a Jew comes to the Western Wall and writes graffiti on the wall celebrating that victory. Why? What is written in that stone? I'm going to share the content again. Again, what I'm going to show you right now is what that graffiti said. Graffiti written, this is a year before Adrian plows the city and de-Judaizes Jerusalem. You have graffiti in that very short moment of Jewish victory, the Bar Kokhba revolt. Let me show you what it says here. The full verse. Okay, showing the document again. There we go. Uri'item besas lipchem. Do you see that? You shall see, and your hearts will rejoice. Va'atzmotechem kadesha tifrachna. And your bones will sprout like newly sprung grass. Okay, this is a prophecy from Isaiah. Here you have the verses in front of you that speaks. Isaiah gives a prophecy of a rebuilt Jerusalem. These are incredible, beautiful verses. Let's read it here now on Tisha B'Av. I think it's very appropriate. Rejoice with Jerusalem and be glad for her. All you who love her, join in her jubilation. All you who mourned over her, that you may suck from her breast consolation to the full, that you may draw from her bosom glory to your delight. For thus said God, I will extend to her prosperity like a stream, the wealth of nations like a valley in the flood, and you shall drink of it. You shall be carried on shoulders and dandled upon knees. As a mother comforts her son, so I will comfort you. You shall find comfort in Jerusalem. You shall see, and your heart shall rejoice. Your limbs shall flourish like grass. The power of God shall be revealed on behalf of his servants, but he shall rage against his foes. One second. That, flip around the screen. That, my friends, is what the Jerusalem Jew in the year 133, perhaps, after the couple of months of liberation, after the Bar Kokhba revolt, scribbles on the Kotel. The prophecy from Isaiah, who we mentioned before when we were up in the Jewish quarter, who criticized Hezekiah for building the wall through a house, is saying, look, the prophecy of Isaiah came true. Our hearts are seeing and rejoicing that Jerusalem has been rebuilt, that our bones are dry bones of exile, like grass in the spring has regrown. That dream of a rebuilt Jerusalem was fleeting, right? It was only for a number of months, and then Adrian came, and then we sank into an exile of 2 millennia. But imagine the feeling by archaeologists coming here after the war to a newly Jewish Jerusalem, to a liberated old city, to a liberated Kotel and Har HaBayit, and finding this graffiti that was written by a quickly disappointed Jew 1800 years before, but then realizing that they themselves are us, all of us. Right now, we are reliving that prophecy, that dream of Isaiah. Imagine the emotion that they felt. And now I want to show you something incredible. And I'll end with this, I promise. During 1948, the War of Independence, one of the most fiercest battles and greatest losses that the Jewish forces suffered independence was here in the Jewish quarter, was here in the Old City. As you know, the Jewish quarter fell in the summer of 1948, and it became under Jordanian control, and it was only reconquered 19 years later. 150 Jewish fighters, men and women, young people, old people, lost their lives defending the Jewish quarter of the Old City during the War of Independence during 1948. They were buried during the War of Independence in a mass grave left in the Jewish quarter. After the war ended, coordination with the Jordanian forces, they were rabbis and Chevra Kadisha members were sent into the Jewish quarter to move the bodies of the fighters, of the fallen fighters, from the mass grave in the Old City and move them to a what's called Kever Achim, a grave of brothers and sisters on Mount Herzl, which in the newly born state of Israel became the National Military Cemetery. A memorial was created in 1952 on top of that Kever Achim. Again, this mass resting place of the 150 Jewish fighters that fell in the War of Independence, unsuccessfully defending the Jewish core in the War of Independence. Let me show you that monument that was placed on Mount Herzl. I'm going to share the document one last time. Bum, 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 bum. There it is. And what verse did those who wanted to remember the heroism of the fighters of the Jewish quarter place upon that memorial? Atzmotechem kadesha tifrachna. That their bones will sprout like grass in the spring when the redemption of Jerusalem and the redemption of Israel will finally come. The very verse that 25 years later, archaeologists would find graffitied onto the Kotel by a Jew who ever so fleetingly experienced redemption of Jerusalem 1,800 years earlier during the Bar Kokhba revolt, and then it all comes full circle. Because the fighters in 48 didn't succeed to defending the Jewish quarter, but in 67, we retook it, and archaeologists digging here for decades, rediscovering not just the new Jewish life in Jerusalem, but the ancient Jewish life in Jerusalem, finds that verse, which is not an 1,800-year-old verse, but a 2,800-year-old verse from Yeshayahu Hanavi. What can I say? We're living through crazy, incredible times, and it's remarkable to be able to see the moral messages and the messages of hope and of not giving up and of the twists and turns of Jewish history, all not necessarily coming full circle, but being a really real presence in our lives, whether you live here in Israel, whether you visit here, whether you're here in Montreal. That's what I got. This wasn't easy. I hope this was interesting. I hope this was informative for all of you there in Côte St. Luc. We spoke about ancient walls. We spoke about Chizkiyahu. We spoke about corruption. We spoke about Isaiah. We spoke about Adrian. We spoke about the Kotel. And we saw this very, very, what I think, a very cool graffiti, ancient graffiti, which connects all these different periods in Jewish history. And we spoke about the dream of a redeemed Jerusalem that's about not only a physical Jerusalem, but a Jerusalem that really becomes what the prophets of Israel wanted it to become. And that is Beit Tfilah Yikarei L'chol Ha'amim, a house of prayer for all nations, the spiritual center of the world where righteousness, justice, and charity comes forth from. And that's what we all hope for on this Tisha B'Av. Before I say goodbye, thank you again to Stephanie, my father, for hooking this up. Any last questions, any thoughts before we say goodbye? I'm going to try and daven mincha now. Yes, Oro's raising his hand, please. Unmute yourself. Go for it. Yep. Please.
This was terrific.
Thank you so much.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, thank you. Any other?
I just
any
wanted
other
to
thoughts?
say,
Please.
this was really beautiful, and I think we all really enjoyed it, especially it's meaningful on a day like today. And thank
Absolutely.
you so much. Really, this was a beautiful.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Great. Okay. So hopefully we'll see each other very soon in Yerushalayim. I guess that's all.
Bezrat Hashem. Thank you.
Bezrat
Bezrat
Hashem.
Hashem.
Be well.
Thank you,
Be
Avi.
well.